Question 1. Why does Calvin begin with keeping the month of Abib when discussing the Passover, yet place it under the first commandment? Answer. Because the Passover is not merely a historical remembrance, it concerns the very nature of worship. It is a sign of redemption by which the people acknowledge that this one God alone is their Father, separating him from every idol. Therefore, Calvin regards the slaying of the lamb as a practical exercise of the first commandment, since the first commandment requires people to worship this one God alone. Question 2. Why is the Passover called an exercise of pure worship? Answer. In this ceremony, the people did not simply remember an event in their own way. Rather, they worshipped God through the method He Himself appointed. By doing so, they acknowledged God's redemption in their actions and distinguished themselves from idols in their faith, showing that worship must follow God's command rather than human preference. Question 3. Why does the text then speak about the Sabbath? Answer. Because the sacred assembly of the Passover included the requirement of rest. God commanded the people to cease from all work and gather at the place He chose for worship, showing that time, like worship, is under God's authority. The Sabbath was not merely rest, but rest for the sake of corporate worship. Question 4. Why does the passage mention not only the Passover lamb, but also cattle and sheep? Answer. This indicates that the day was not limited to the slaughter of a single lamb. It was a formal sacred assembly involving the full practice of sacrifice and worship. The emphasis is that all sacrifices had to be offered in the place God chose, not performed individually in each household. Question 5. Why did God forbid people from slaughtering the Passover sacrifice in their own towns? Answer. To prevent worship from becoming scattered and disordered. If each person offered sacrifices according to their own way, different forms and even different objects of worship would arise, ultimately corrupting the unity of faith. By commanding them to come to one sanctuary, God preserved the unity of the church and the consistency of worship. Question 6. What is the meaning of only one altar? Answer. It symbolizes that God gathers His people under one banner, maintaining unity in both faith and worship. The singular altar stands against idolatry and prevents people from establishing their own centers of worship. Question 7. Why is the solemnity of the seventh day appropriately mentioned here? Answer. Because the entire passage concerns sacred assemblies and corporate worship, and the rest of the seventh day lies at the heart of such gatherings. It connects time, place, and worship, showing that God regulates not only the content of worship, but also its appointed seasons and order. Question 8. What is the central teaching of this whole passage? Answer. Worship must be carried out according to the way God has established, at the time and place He appoints, by His people gathered together. The Passover, the altar, the sacred assembly, and the Sabbath all point to the same reality. God desires a united, pure worshiping community centered on Him.